Call this meeting to order, the Stansbury Service Agency Board of Directors meeting on August 5th, 2026, at the clubhouse at 6:30 p.m. It looks like we have a community member with us, except for the fire department here. And we have some of the general manager and some of the office staff. So, thank you for being here. We'll have a roll call this time. Brandon, start with you.
Wayne Neilson, present. Kyle Shields here.
Brett Palmer here.
Rob Peterson here.
Kasey here.
Thank you. I will make a note that John Wright is out of town and will be in attendance tonight with us. I'll leave us in the presentation. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. With that, we'll turn it over to the local county fire district.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I'm myself Brown. I'm the interim fire chief for North Dakota Fire District. Chief Nunn has left us, so he's gone to Colorado and started a new life order. I just wanted to bring the update, the annual, monthly update for you from June 5th to July 5th, or excuse me, from July to August. In July, we had a total of 63 calls, and in June, we had a total of 68 calls, and we had 3 hazardous situations, 44 medicals, 11 non-emergencies, and 5 public service calls for residents first Stansbury Park. So, what looks good on there, there's no fire. So, the fire at Stansbury Park last month. So that is very good. Do you guys have any questions for me?
When you're acting as interim chief, what is the protocol for the official?
They put it out, they put the posting out, it closes on the 12th of August, I believe. So then they'll go through the interview process and some other things, and see what we come up with.
Do you want to speak with for that?
I probably will. I haven't yet.
Not yet?
I haven't
Okay.
yet. I probably will.
Well, thank you for reporting. Any other questions? I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
I have one question.
Yeah.
We've talked a little bit about the swale out here, right next to Milk Pond, in terms of, you need to get a chance to look at that and see if there's anything we need to do with that in terms of wildfire mitigation.
And where's that at?
If you go up the back towards Frontage Road, look off to the left and you'll see where that area is that drops down all the way back up. I talked to him about that a few years ago, and he said, yeah, it looks okay, but you might want to just check and see. Since it's far down here now.
Removing all those trees that were in there, that is really helpful. Cutting, thinning out those trees with brush and all, that's really helpful, the mitigation over there. I don't know how you get down there and mow that down in there.
We wouldn't know it, might have to figure out something, if it's a real issue.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think we're going to get it out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Are there any public comments? Three. Turn that mic on, state your name and address, please.
Murray Kendall. There we go. It's Murray Kendall, 405 Country Club. A couple of things. On the frontage road, you get over Village Boulevard and you go to turn to get on the highway, you got that big bush there, and you have to get out in the middle of the road to see. And it's been that way for years. So we're used to that. One thing I am seeing is coming the other way, when you get to Stansbury Parkway and you stop and you either go to Maverick or turn left. There's 3 trees there on this side of the Stansbury entrance that have been planted and they're growing up there. I get concerned, I don't know how big those are going to be, but the more traffic we have gotten, as I sit there and wait for cars, I have to look to my left, I have to look across, and then now that we've got the stoplight there, all of a sudden here you've got a whole stream of cars coming off of 36, going down Parkway, and you think, okay, well, I'm about there. And so you look left, you look across, and then all of a sudden people coming south on 36 start turning in there, coming off of 36. And I guess I just get concerned if those trees get bigger, that it's going to be a side barrier for us, especially some of us older guys. We get a little more nervous as we're out driving as we get older. I don't know whether we want to take those out, if that would be a consideration. They could be trimmed way up high, but anyway, it's just a concern of mine that going forward, if they start to block view there, that, there's potential for an accident there. There isn't a lot of traffic there anymore. Sometimes you're sitting there and you're waiting, all of a sudden people get, I'm tired of waiting, so I'm going to go. And anyway, that's just a concern. I guess the other thing is we've got the tennis court over by me, and I don't know if anything's going to be done with that. I talked to Jim and said, well, if we're not going to do anything, we'll just leave it for a skate. People go out and play street hockey. I've seen people play street hockey there once. Over the years, I've lived there when there was tennis courts there. I saw people playing there a lot. And so I guess if we could get some courts back in there, it would be a good deal, because I know there are people that used to play tennis there, and I think there probably still would be. I know when there's still a saggy court there, we had one family in our neighborhood that would go over there and try and play a little bit. Just with that, the saggy fence. So anyway, that's a couple of things that I have. But again, I really do get concerned here, having side issues there, going ahead. Those trees, grow up and block side.
Are the trees you're talking about in the center median?
Yes, yeah. There's 3 of them right there that have been planted. And I like trees as much as the next guy, but I guess I just get concerned. A place up where my daughter lives in Twilly, you come off the hill and there's trees down at the bottom of the hill. You can't see anything there in the summer when they got leaves on them to turn left. So anyway, it's just a concern. Thank you.
Thanks, Ray.
Are you seeing any more, street hockey people?
I've seen one.
One, nothing.
So would you want a tennis court or pickleball or?
Maybe both. I mean, obviously pickleball's going to be a little noisier, but if there's no lights over there, people are going to have to quit at some point. But I just know over the years, people have used the, they used to be people over there playing tennis. There was tennis lessons, some people giving lessons at times. So I think that it would be used again if there was something there.
Thanks, Ray. Any other public comments? Okay. We'll move on to review public comments from the last meeting. Jim, you want to do that?
Yeah, we had actually 3 commenters, but 2 of them were the same thing. Steve Kemp from 22 Lake, we talked about the late night fishing, and he had asked if we could put some signs up over there talking about the rules and compliance with the rules. I'm working on some verbiage to put on those, and I'll talk about that a little later. But we can certainly try putting those up in a few places and see if it cuts down on traffic over there. Rose Moore and Rick Nelson from the reserve talked about the grading around the reserve. I want to look at seeing if, we got to get encroachment areas out of there, and then probably see when we're working with greater other areas if we can. Those are, see if we can maybe take it past the dozer all the way around that trail and level it out a little bit. So that's where we are with those two things.
Where's the reserve?
You know what holiday oil is?
Okay.
Just that
Just that
area
right
there, over by them.
Thanks, Stephen. Manager updates?
We moved the files from Dropbox to SharePoint. We have noticed some gaps in the transfer, so we're gonna probably keep one Dropbox, subscription live. It's $300 for the year, just so we can make sure we've got everything moved over. We're also in the process of reallocating those so that they're cleaner and easier to find. I know we've done some with the council stuff, so, and I find it easier to use, maybe nobody else will, but I think it's better. We are not renewing Dropbox, so for everybody other than the one subscription that we're going to keep, those will all drop on the 25th of August. So you should be able to get into SharePoint. If you have any issues, talk to Ingrid, and she can work through us or through the county to get you access to SharePoint. I've been using it for a couple of weeks now. Very similar to Dropbox. There's some nuance in there, but I think if you're using Dropbox, it'll work just fine. All West is still trying to get the interface up, although I think Kasey may have done that. They were working on it today to see if we could get All West up and running and interface with, we bought a new router, so it should work better. And that'll give us the speed and the bandwidth and the storage we need to do more with our cameras. We have been notified there will be a power shutdown starting tomorrow at noon to 6 p.m. We have made provisions so that the pool and the golf course will remain operational, but everything in this building will be shut down. So the library will be shut down, the office will be shut down tomorrow. On the operations side, we're starting to lose staff as people go back to school, so we have been looking to hire replacements. We've got a list from the managers, who they're losing and from what particular team they're coming from. So we're looking to fill those. We have gotten a lot of positive feedback on our mode with the groundskeepers. So we recognize in our last which was also a farewell to the summer health luncheon. So they've been doing a pretty good job. We kicked around who we're going to get to take the lake samples. The lake has a requirement to do monitoring for water watch. We have a resident that's been doing it over the years. We're going to pick some of that up, so we'll have some in-house training to do that. The reason we picked mechanic is, other than the part-time boat driver, he's the one that's out on the lake the most, so that allows us to keep some continuity there. I want to talk a little bit, I brought the diagram in last month, or last month, about putting the boulders out, which was the consensus for the last 3 or 4 boards, and the discussion last week was to do fence line along the parking lot. So we're looking at maybe going here and then back down to where the hay-rails are. I also talked, we might want to take the hay-rails out and just fence that around. We can also run that fencing down on this side. And if you want to look what that looks like, this is their Lake West. This is their parking lot with a 2-rail fence. We would probably do something a little different than that, but that's what it would look like off the parking lot if you stand off out of that area there. One of the things that we can do once we get that fence in is we're slowly working from south to north, and they're working behind the shack right now to restore that irrigation, and we're going to see that. The reason we picked that is that's sort of out of the way for Stansbury days. But this fall, if we get this fence in, we could use our temporary fence, and then we could reseed this area to restore that in the fall, winter time frame. Bring that area back. We're working on irrigation. Most of that irrigation is working. We just have to restore the power so it will run off the weather track system to set off the batteries we're running on now. We have had a little issue with the boat. It's been hot, and lake's down just a little bit because of the heat. We're getting a lot of the weeds and training in some areas, particularly right in this area. So we one day had 4 guys out there for 8 hours, just pulling the weed out of there. Took about 4 or 5 dump trucks. The problem is we cut the weed. It's finer this year, so it's falling through the trap on the boat. So when the winds blow, they predominantly come either north or south. When they come out of this direction, they'll push it up in this cove, and it collects there. The homeowner right there is having a real problem with that stuff piling up in there. And we've tried everything we can. We tried pulling the boat in there and pulling it out. We tried breaking it from the shore. We tried taking our little boat in and trying to pull it out, and it's just going to keep collecting in there. He recommended not cutting, so it doesn't, our cuttings come down here, but I don't think everybody else would like that on the lake. So if anybody's got any ideas to how we can get that out of there more easily, let us know, because we got a couple other spots over in these 2 also sitting in flat. So that's one of the things we're fighting on the lake right now.
Jim, did you say you're having trouble keeping the lake full?
No, it's down about an inch.
Oh, okay, I thought I heard you say that.
No, it's down, well, I think it's probably, we get more evaporation right now than we usually do. One thing we're going to look at doing, this goes back to the sign that was requested, this is also fairly west. We've had a couple of issues with golf ball damage, and we've had some issues with trespass guys driving their cars all over, so I'm going to take this sign and modify it to sort of say, hey, you know, you're here as a guest. Golf ball damage is your responsibility. Trespass is not allowed. You can respect the surrounding people. I'm going to use a similar tone with the one we're going to put on these 2 belts that Steve Lynn was talking about. Except it's, you know, here's our park rules as opposed to, and we consider the neighbors, we're here as a guest, da da da. So we'll buy a couple, 3 of those, and put one. This one's going to go by the clubhouse. We're going to buy a couple more to put in the first 2 fingers off the lake as you go up, like you to see how that works. Golf course, we started at the sulfur burner, and there's about half a barrel of that, or tub of that sulfur left. We had a fish kill shortly after we started it, but we only saw that in the second lake, not in the lake immediately off the irrigation pond. So we don't think that was the issue. But we've also talked to Broad Fork, and we're going to have, once we get through that half ton that we had there, we've got to agree with them, and we're going to wait about a week for the sulfur to ease out. And then Broad Fork's going to come in and do treatment of that lake and a couple more up the thing where we're seeing a lot of algae, so we can see how that treatment works. Broad Fork has given us a bid to do it year-round, maybe once a month treatment, and there's the cost. We're also going to bounce that off what the sulfur cost is, and I'm looking at the burn rate right now so that we can figure out the cost difference between doing one and the other, and then this year we'll be able to look at the effectiveness of both those treatments and see which one sort of works better, and we can decide where we want to go next year. So
We just have the one burner.
yeah.
Hey, Jim?
Yeah.
So is it a constant 39 per month? Or does it have like highs and lows, like the mosquito abatement, irrigation?
Which one? This one?
Just in general, like we're saying it's going to cost, just $42.50 a month for a year.
Yep. It's going to come out once a month to treat it, and that's the cost. It is treatment.
But it requires the same treatment year round.
Yeah. No, I think that is for 6 or 8 months, so it's not during the winter. So it's treatment to knock down 2 things: algae, which is the problem early on, but gets the problem later, and pondweed, which is the major issue that we're seeing.
So the 25,000 a year, you just put it out this month.
Yeah, that's how they're going to do it.
But it would treat, they're planning to also treat the Phragmites and the cattails, correct?
Correct. So, we'd like to look at both those treatments and see which one works the best. The VFD that we're going to install on the Greenbelt 2 should be installed next week. That has been in the works for a while, and they finally got all the parts and pieces. It's also include a new, I call it a rotometer, but it's a rate sensor that's going to be on the system. Voltmeter, yeah. And we're also working on some areas of irrigation on the golf course. This is a schematic for which ponds we're going to treat. We're going to treat this pond, and this pond over here. So those are the ponds we picked with Broad Fork to treat. Those seem to be the worst. We were out there looking at them a couple of weeks ago. And we're going to start with those and see what we think the treatment level looks like.
Doesn't pond 2 feet into the ones right by the road, and then come across the 3.
As I understand it, that's what I thought happened. I thought it was here, came out this well, and over here, and then across here. Talking to Mac, it sounds like there's a straight pipe over here to this meter. There's two diversions off here. I don't know if that's the case.
Oh, sorry. So Jim, the pipe, board well number 1, the pipe goes under number 1, it goes under number 2, it goes over to the pond at 3, well, 3 is not, it's between 2 and 3, and then it goes into the weir. That's the, how the.
So you're saying it comes under here and over?
No, it goes from, it doesn't even pump into 1 or 2, it just goes straight to the pond. So there is an outlet, it used to be controlled by a float.
Yeah.
And to fill pond 2 and fill the pond between 2 and 3. Now what they have is just like a 1-inch standpipe that keeps pond number 2 full. Plus there's also an interconnecting pipe between 1 and 2. So when the border well number 2 fills pond 1, it will also fill pond 2. And it can also drain pond 2 and pond 1 to be used on the golf course.
So I understand there's an issue with this other thing that will fill it from board well 1. We're looking at that to see what we need to do to make sure that we can fill it from 1 instead of 2. There is a connection over here underneath that.
What are you saying is an issue, Jim?
Max said he's having a tough time diverting it from the board well 1 diversion into ponds 2 and 3. These two.
Shouldn't be any trouble diverting from pond 1 and 2.
No, so what they're doing right now is it's flowing from 1 into 2.
So if you don't want that to happen, you can shut the gate
Right.
between 1 and 2.
Right. But Max said since he's been here, there's not a way to fill this pond from Greenbelt.
There's no need because you can fill it from 1 well 2. And there is a 1-inch standpipe that will keep that pond 2 full from well 1.
Okay, yeah, we need to look at that system.
I was talking to one of the golf course guys yesterday about the pond between 2 and 3, and he told me that the kids had a stick or a piece of wood, and they broke the valve box nut off inside of the concrete structure,
Well, that's this one.
which generally is used to open up so you can fill that pond. So that valve is going to need to be fixed, yeah.
Is there any concern or reason why we couldn't take the plank out on that pond?
You mean the plant they see in the.
I absolutely would think that one of the fish should be walking on that concrete box.
That would probably stop some vandalism.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. I mean, we really shouldn't have kids out on that concrete. Messing with the metal. I think they struggle with that metal gate.
irrigate.
So I think we just have the plank removed, and then if we have to work on it, we take the plank over there. That's just my opinion. I don't know, it's been there a long time, I don't know why it stayed there.
I just think everybody thought that's the way it was supposed to be, and that's the way it was when they got it.
Brad, what's the dimension of the pipe that goes from underneath the lake? How big is the pipe?
12 inch.
What's the 24 inch, it would be my, you know.
The 24 inch is, coming from the golf course, it applies pressure to the golf course irrigation system. They need to be that big to, get all the flows up.
So he's looking to treat pond 1, 2, and 3 is what you're telling us?
Yeah.
And this treatment, I'm gonna ask a stupid question because I know there's no guarantees, but is there something on the contract that guarantees a percentage of effectiveness? So if it doesn't work, we're not just
Yeah, we've looked at it, and that's why we're doing the trial in this fall, instead of, I haven't signed a contract for next year yet, so I want to see how it works this fall before we move on.
One of the issues that we had in pond 1 is that the algae and growth is really big, and it's plugging the inlet, and then
So-
it's not able to water the golf course.
So we had that problem with water early on, and then by the time the sprinklers rotated to the fairways, it would plug that, and the automatic sensor would shut it down, so we wouldn't get any water to the fairways with the Greenbelts that runs off of. So it was just sort of stagnant. So we finally got it cleared out manually. We put sulfur just to mitigate it until we got rod fork in line. And I want to get rid of that sulfur that's there in case we decide to go with rod fork, so we don't have much stumble over that sulfur bag for years.
Have we seen any issues when we were in the sulfur before, grass?
No, actually, I was talking to the manufacturer today that sold the sulfur burner, and he said the sulfur burner actually lowers the pH of the soil, and it actually, unwinds the salts that are in the grass, which technically, not technically, he said that he's seeing savings of upward of 20% less irrigation required, and less fertilization required, but I don't know, but that's what he reported.
You would expect that if it's going, if you burn sulfur, you get sulfur dioxide and some sulfuric acid as a byproduct, and that's automatically going to lower your pH in the soil, because those are all acidic.
Killed a bunch of frogs.
We don't think that was the case, because we didn't see any kill in one, which is where the initial flow is. We saw a lot out here. Mac thinks it might have been turnover because it also rained about that same time. We don't know. So we really don't know what caused that kill.
But again, the sulfur burners have been used for years, just recently it was turned off, correct? So it's
Yeah.
been a long-term solution for years until recently, correct?
Well, it was turned off several years ago and hasn't been used.
But the trade-off there is more labor to constantly deal with weeds.
Yes. To deal with the weeds and the sulfur burner, you constantly have to fill it, whereas if they'll do a one-time treatment once a month, that saves a lot.
And it's a necessary reservoir for the irrigation, you
Yes.
can't abandon it.
No, we can't. Just a quick synopsis on how the golf course differs from other places. In your home irrigation system, you usually have a water distribution point that goes into a valve box, and that goes out to the sprinklers. So you might have multiple valves in there. If I want to work on the leg, I can just shut off that valve to that leg and work on the leg. It's not quite the same with the golf course because their valves are in the actual head, or the commercial head. So there's no valve box to shut it off. So your only shut off is back at the distribution point. Right now, we've got one place where we can actually shut the water off right here. And so that's one of the issues we've been having is when we want to work on stuff on the golf course, we have to shut everything down. There are some diversion stuff out here that Matt tells me is not working. I just found a might want to go out and look at these diversion places and see what the costs and effort would be to convert it, so that then we can isolate an area if we want to work on a certain area. You still have to size the golfers, but we'll at least give you a chance to isolate certain areas for work.
Jim, we've installed several wells on the golf course over the years. I believe they can isolate hole number 8 and hole number 9. There's a valve that Matt was talking about, replacing on hole number, just north of 17 Green over the winter. And I think that if we can get that one replaced, we might be able to isolate, the back line.
Yeah, there's about a dozen of those out there, and we need to pick spots where we want to start building with that.
Just know your replacement, you gotta maintain them, which is exercising.
Okay.
That's where we're at. They never do it.
They never did anything with them, so they just rusted in place. Fortunately, the rest of it opens, so they're not shutting the system down. We are looking at a couple of places. Holes 11 and 17, if you look at a map, you can see those. Those are two areas that they're manually watering right now. We're trying to get electrical and water and systems in there. We do have a weather track system that those can hook to, but right now those are what they're working on primarily. That's starting with the rewiring on 11. T-box 4 is one area that for some reason quit working over the winter. That can only be manually watered right now, so we're looking at that one. And then there's some three green belts on 13 and 14 that we're looking at. I'm going to have Gordon's crew run through there and see if they can identify where all those parts and pieces are. The problem with some of these is they're split. Some of them come off golf course, some of them come through a valve box. So we need to figure out which ones we can work on and how we can work on them. So that's, once we get throughout here, that's where we can actually. Projects. So on capital maintenance projects, we're doing pretty well. We've got a lot of this stuff completed. We picked up a few extra projects. One issue we've had, everybody asked why the valves aren't working. So I don't know if it was a result of the work done by UDOT or whatever, but all of the lines going in were shorted and the breakers were fused. So we replaced that, and the pumps and the VFDs were not working. So I had Zimmerman come out, and they brought their own VFD. That's a bigger VFD, and was able to isolate that one side has an inoperative pump, the other side has an inoperative VFD. So we're going to replace those two. There's no guarantee that the side we're replacing the pump on doesn't also need a VFD. So that's one thing that we're working on. I'm trying to coordinate their visit with when they come out and do the VFD on Gordon. We did get a bid back to do this year. I haven't initiated that bid. I'm looking to see what the bridge and stuff, other stuff actually costs us, but that was a firm bid to fix that. We also got a bid to fix this north wall. The north wall, when they built it, built the outside area, they just pushed the dirt up against the wall, and that structure has caused the stucco to fail as well as the wood. So we're getting leakages in the old sauna area. So we just gave that contract to England to come in and pull the rocks away. They're going to redo all that wall work as well as a pipe that we think is leaking in there. And so we can seal up that north wall. Then they're going to, when they put it back, they're going to build a diversion system so that it doesn't, so it'll flow down through that. There's a culvert or a mini pipe down there that'll flow down through there instead of pushing it back up against the wall, damaging the wall material. We're still looking at the other one that we haven't made a leak yet is the, let's see if I can figure out where it is. This is the main entry. That concrete over there has has leakage, so we get what we call a drain room that flows down into the room in the basement, which also has a drain which has been cemented shut. So, we're still getting bids on that one to move to that. We also are going to fix up in this area up here, right above us, when they took out some of the fireplace stuff, they left a hole. It's not a big hole, but it's enough of a hole, so we've got American Roofing coming out, and we're going to fix that. Once we get that, we've got all the leaks fixed in this building, with the exception of one we found when we had that big rainstorm that appears to be coming off the deck where the HVAC is. So that one's going to be a little more tricky. It's going to take a little more effort to figure out how to fix that. We only see that when we get a lot of weather coming from a certain direction. So it looks like the underlying area is failed. So it's going to cost a lot of money because you have to move all 5 of the HVACs out. If you do that, then put the HVACs back. So we're waiting until we see if we have to do something else with the HVACs.
Are we keeping track of all of the bills for the balances on the front, so we can get back to right now? Clearly, if light bulbs are fused together, somebody hits something
Yeah.
to cause that to happen, see if we can get them to pay for some of the damage.
Yeah,
Those see it, then it needs to be documented probably right away, or anything like that.
we are tracking. I don't know if it's right now, but you got, because you got this problem. It's a potential add. Some of the things we're looking at, I talked about the fence and receiving area. We've also talked about the clean and sleeve the line from hole 3. We have talked to triple D or double D. We did that before. The estimate, the sleeve itself would be 25 to 50K. I think the last time we did the video and the clean out of the stuff, it was a couple of grand, $3 grand maybe. We're going to try and look. We've got the same thing of the wearable on 3 needs to be rebuilt, or at least fixed. We think we've got a maybe fix for that. We need to clear the line from hole 17. We talked about that earlier, and we need to rebuild the canal there that allows us to pump into the lake. Right now, we're using, our crews go down there and use the neoprene to shut it off, but the gate itself is worn and rusted. It's getting difficult to move. So those are some areas we need to look at for capital maintenance projects next year.
Are we talking about the gate that's on the original property?
Mm-hmm.
That shared gate?
Well,
We tried to work on it yesterday.
I mean, is it a shared gate because it's a gate?
It's, yep, the only way that we can get water out of the mill pond is to close it down, and the canal company is basically saying that's our responsibility if we want the water.
That's what I was thinking.
yeah, we try to get them to buy it, but they capital projects. The biggest one that's still hanging out there is the bridge. We're going to talk about that later. We're moving forward on a lot of these. The work that we're doing on All West and the internet system is to support that. Waterway Ball Field is the one that's probably the most critical because that grant runs out in October. So we really need to get this one done, and I don't know where we are on that. You,
Just waiting for coordination with John.
okay.
So my question on the budget, I mean, now we're at 25. Earlier in the year, we were 40, and we're like, that's only the infield, but we really need our 60 the outfield. It was like, I can get away with $2,500 for a pitching now. Like, what's your realistic budget? Is that number on a few others, it's been changing every time we've seen it look at budgets for the ball field.
Yeah, this budget that we put in, and hopefully we can do it within 30K, which will free that one up, is to level it enough to make it playable.
That's only phase.
Well, no, I think the infield would be, look, the outfield. They weren't going all the way to the fence.
This is not,
So, I remember the 25,000, and then we were gonna get 30,000 off the golf grant. I thought that was pretty consistent. I remember talking to John about it.
Yeah.
And that was months ago, the 25, and we were hoping for the.
but you know what I'm talking about, right? Because we've been in finance meetings and we've talked about this. Okay.
One thing I would like to add, since we saved some money on some of these other purchases, I'd like to buy a larger cedar. This one's a lighter weight cedar, actually does a trench, and we can hook that up to any of our equipment, and that will enable us to do the reseeding out here on the area up here. And Mac's got a couple of areas over on the golf course. That'll be a shared buy between golf course and parks, because we're going to trade it back and forth. Unless anybody has any objections to buying cedar.
What kind of cedar is it? Like, is it rail or what?
No, it's like a disc cedar. Burrow in the cedar.
Split cedar? Okay.
Finances, I only got two real quick slides. This is the, where we were at the end of the month. We did experience a little drop here because we finally paid the Hughes contract, so we're about $746,000 left in the PTIF fund. And we'll see that more in a later slide. So, and this is the pool revenue. I think I showed this last version of this last time. This is as of the end of July. We did pretty well on swim lessons and swim team stuff. Party rentals getting up to where it's supposed to be. 86% of the budget. We did experience, as we expected, a big drop in revenue from non-resident fees. Punch cards are doing better than I thought they would. This amount for season passes was lower than I would expect, and this is probably about what's to be expected with the new water park. So overall, right now, as of the end of July, we're 72% of our projected budget. So we're going to be maybe 80, 85% of budget.
So what do you forecast our cost to be on the pool this year?
We're actually below cost. We thought we were going to be about 150, but we've still got some outstanding stuff. And I haven't looked that closely at the cost yet. All that happened next.
All right, thank you, Jim. Next order of business is discuss potential transfer of water right credits to Ivory Homes to improve the trail section that is around the Sagewood Village subdivision west of Village Boulevard. It encompasses several phases.
I got the presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, so the proposal on the table is the current plat calls for pervious trail around roadways around the system. We've been pushing, Ivory Homes to develop an asphalt trail. Ivory Homes has proposed a cost share to do the whole trail, what they've already done in roadways and asphalt. Their projected cost is $180K, split with the agency, and the agency would cover the cost, difference, our half with water rights. So here's a look at the subdivision of the trail. I don't know if anybody's seen this. This area in red, they had already done a 6-inch road-based trail. This is what we'd like to see them do, because this little entryway is a problem, and I'll show you that. If they came up here and tied into this property, and it makes a complete trail system. So, Sagewood cross-section, this is the cross-section that they've already done. You can see it's a 6-inch permeable road-based thing, compacted road-based. And there's the slope that they said they're going to get on the side, and we'll talk about that. This is what they're going to, so they're actually going to put a little thicker road base because they're adding an 1.5 inch of road base to level that, because there's a lot of dips in it, and there's a lot more than I think they thought. And then they'll put 3 inches of compacted asphalt on that trail. Okay, so it'll be an asphalt trail all the way around.
All the yellow and the red?
Just the red.
Just the red.
They said, well, the yellow belongs to the homeowners association, so we'll let them worry about it. Who's them right now? The Ivory Home contract that I got a hold of shows that there's a first in place to compact the additional 1.5 inch of road base. Finish in place to compact commercial grade asphalt. Their bid was $147,000. Remember, they originally thought it was going to be $180,000. So there's some issues with that. The agreement was 50-50 split. Well, if you look at the acre feet they need, water to complete the subdivision, it's 2.605. At $40 per acre foot, that'd be about $104,000 for that. That much water. But the split in cost of our share is significantly lower than that. Even if you go to 30 acre feet, then we're probably in the ballpark. But with the increase in acre feet, we're providing significantly more of the cost than the 50-50 split. The other issue is the homeowners who installed their irrigation. When we walk down there walking, you can see a lot of irrigation is sliding down on the trail, either runoff or actual spray, which is making it difficult for those guys to actually complete what they started to do on the process of adding that asphalt. The second thing I alluded to is it leaves out that section of trail from where it ends to that property on Polk Canyon. So we want this, as I mentioned, we want the trail. I don't think it's showing very well now. And Sean and I walked the trail with them on Monday. We picked up a couple of problems, and they already picked one up. One is this outlast pass is adjacent to an already erected vinyl fence. So they're going to have to build a berm between the fence and the asphalt trail so that it does not melt that fence. The other issue we have is right here where it curves down, there's a significant drop. And it's more than the ADA standard drop down there. So we suggested they build that, we're working on that, so that this is a gentle slope going down here. This is sloped the wrong direction. It's just sloping towards their main front. It's sloping back towards the homes here. So that we were told they needed to grade that in 1.5 to 2 inch side grade is the limit, going towards wherever the drainage ditch is. Down here at the corner, there's a significant bend, and I'm concerned, I don't know if anybody else is, but I'm concerned about the swing around here. If they've got enough fill here to support the asphalt to make this swing around the school. And 5 over here, this is the part that's already been completed. The slope there, there's no way they're going to get that huge on the slope. I think Brett's looked at that also, and it's pretty steep. I don't know how they're going to fix that, but we may just have to live with it. But when they put this section in, they did not adhere to that 2 inches.
Section 5?
Section 5. Yeah, this section of houses is high, right on the trail, and it's got a significant drop down. So that's what we saw looking around. Plus the fact that it's not really very level in there, so we told them they had to do a lot of fill. Again, we talked about the irrigation that's coming across the river. So that's sort of where we are on that trail. So we need to discuss what we're going to do with the agreement to provide costs, the shared cost for them to do the trail, complete the trail and asphalt. I don't know where you want to go in terms of watersheds. So the agreement was to do I think we initially started at 2.25 or 2.6 or whatever. So That was the query I sent out, and we wanted to do that, and then we want to agree to give them all the water share and do something different. So that's all the background. So I'm going to turn over to Brett with you.
My understanding, Jim, when we were discussing with Iron Rose on the section between 1 and 2, we were concerned about weeds between the fence and the trail, and we were asking them potentially to put the asphalt up against the fence. And they came back and said, if we put it right up against the fence, it has a tendency to melt vinyl with the heat coming off. But I was under the impression that we had to do a berm.
Yeah, what they're going to do is take some road-based build and just create a small berms between or a standoff between the fence and the actual base or asphalt, just to create a temperature barrier, heat barrier. So, I'm not thinking it's going to be a.
So this was brought before the board last July. We have new board members. It was, I didn't think that it was a 50-50 split. I just thought they were looking for some extra water, and at that point in time, the water was valued at $30,000 an acre foot. It's currently valued at $40,000 an acre foot now. So I guess the board needs to decide what they would like to do, if we want to do the asphalt trail or not, and how this came about. Regarding phase 2, which is not shown in this section, during the plan review process, we told Ivy that we weren't interested in maintaining any more road-based trails. If they wanted to feed the property, that had to be in the asphalt. And so they came back and said, well, I think our community will be unhappy if we asphalt one section of the trail. We need some additional water rights with the service agency willing to be the balance of the water rights. We need to finish our development, and we'll just go ahead and pave the whole trail. And last year, the water rights were valued at $30. The board never made a final decision on that, and so I guess later on, we're going to be, it's on the agenda for approval, but what are your thoughts? We want to, because we can just scrap it all right now and say, just keep it in road base, and we won't worry about it. We want it to be an asphalt trail, and we need to figure out what you want to do with evaluation of the water rights and how you want to apply that or not apply it. One thought would be to keep the water rights valued at $30,000 an acre foot, put towards the trail, and then they would have to pay the balance in cash. That would be one thought. If you're not interested in doing the asphalt trail, then we don't need to have that discussion.
So the selling of the water rights, they just need more water, is that what it is?
They need 2.605 acre feet to finish their development in Stansbury Park. And if the service agency doesn't have it or doesn't want to sell it, then they'll go elsewhere to get it.
Do you maintain that trail?
Yes.
Well, we will.
It's been, certain sections have been deeded with the plat. There are a couple MDBs where they inadvertently deeded one section of that trail to the homeowners association in phase 11. But the intent was that was to be deeded to the service agency. The trail plus the open space, which is about 40 feet wide. So what are your thoughts, concerns, questions?
So I have a couple of concerns. I'm not opposed if we want to do this, but I think there's some concessions, right? So we talked about down by number 5, we shouldn't have to pay to fix the storm, which is the way it should have been to start with.
That goes for the entire trail.
So I think them saying saying we don't have, the reality of the trail they've got right now isn't even meeting our grade standard of what we should have, based on the plans.
I think it's just this section, I think the rest of it is okay.
So, if it is just 5, let's say it is just 5, I don't think we should pay fix all the slope.
And I don't, we would be, pay for this.
But we would be, because we're paying half of the asphalt, they're gonna fix it to the asphalt.
No, they're not going, that point is,
That section of,
they're not going to fix the grade. Grade is what the grade is, there's no way to grade that.
They can make it to 2, but the house is already certain.
The distance is too short and the delta distance.
So my understanding, and also looking at the trail, is the inch and a half extra road base to fix the highs and lows because they did put it down in the first place. That's $40,000. We're also dealing with a dollar amount that exceeds 100,000, even exceeds 50,000, right? Different policy procedures when the dollar amount gets that high. And when I heard about this last week, right, there was no contract, no plans, no scope of work, only one bid. And we're asked to vote on it tonight. I made a couple phone calls with a couple contract advice, and I've got numbers, quotes, that are quite a bit lower than that. So, are we splitting it 50-50 or are we just paying for it?
That was my next question, is, what is the width of the, what's the approximate length and
4,700 feet
4,700 feet,
times 6.
and we're doing 3 inch?
3 inch over inch and a half. Plus that comes up to what, 27,000 square feet, and they got 10% factor on top of that.
What's your numbers? That was my initial is, have we actually done this for ourselves? And we're getting what we're paying for.
And again, I think it's worth conversations with these people or the contractors you want to engage with. But at the 147, and then we got another guy about 108, and another guy that's about 86. The other concern I have is you're going to point out 4 and 2. Those are tight terms. If you don't like when we put these scooters in and sit around.
There's no way to fix it though.
Well, they can probably fix this one.
Yeah, or
They can add more fill and make that one. This one, this is really tight, and it's really narrow road. But this one's a problem. In full disclosure, I drove my Hilton con down there, and I could do just fine until I got to you cannot make it tight.
So I'm just curious, with some of the numbers that I saw, I think it's worth a conversation, and then you possibly consider the remaining section of Poland Road. And not even entertain a term with that too.
I think another point too, that Brett mentioned, is they're talking about this other phase, and they say, well, we think our homeowners would be mad if we do one side asphalt, the other side gravel, and maybe I'm naive, but that's not a problem. In reality, if our flat falls for asphalt, to hand us a trail, that's Ivory's problem to deal with their homeowners on backside. I don't think that should be leverage point used against us to say, well, I don't think close homeowners are going to be happy. That's really, this is what we are requiring now for you to deed it to us. So it's just a thought.
One of the issues we have is the plats have already been signed, and this goes to, Brock's point of view. In the past, the service agency has been arm's length with the developers, and they haven't, been engaged in conversation. And, they deeded these parcels already to us without any bond requirements or construction standards or anything that is done in the normal course of business. And so to go back and say, we want an asphalt trail now, on that previous phase isn't something that we have standing on, we could do it on trails moving forward. So,
I didn't realize we signed the paperwork.
yeah.
Well, and some weren't signed, right? Some didn't have a place for signature, they were just essentially done and they can take over.
That's another good question.
So I think it's in the best interest of the service agency, I mean, to pay it for maintenance purposes. But then along comes with that is, are you gonna plow for snow, all that jazz?
Well, and my other question, like, look at the properties on the west side. We keep talking routinely about adopt a Greenbelt, maybe there's some homeowners that want to put speed limit there, put some trees. I just think that you can make sure that all of a sudden I put in my email, like, an emergency on one person's part doesn't make an emergency on our part. Some of us are just gonna figure it out within a week. And I just think it's an issue of what our role will be are.
So ultimately, Brock, what do you want to do? Knowing what you know now.
I think there should be some more conversation, right? Aside from, again, some of these corners that need to be addressed, as Jim pointed out, right? Do we really want to try to finish all the way to Pullen Road? I think it's in all of our interest to look at some of these cost numbers. Because look at the numbers that I have versus some of the numbers I got, it's not a big split. If someone's charging double, we're splitting that, or essentially pay for it all.
No, that was not my initial person.
So I think it's worth the conversation to get a couple bids.
Yeah, we don't have to, act on this, that's why we put it on the agenda, if the board was in agreement, we can move forward, but we didn't want to just leave it as is, without an action item later on the agenda in case we said, yeah, we're on agreement, and then there wasn't any mechanism to move forward, so I'm perfectly fine when we get to the next line item for approval and the action items to say we're not ready to move on this, we've got some.
So what about the water rights? Is it two different discussions or?
Well, it can be.
Or it has to be?
It doesn't have to be, the board can say, no, we don't want to do it, or, to Brock's point, maybe we say, well, if this is actually only an $80,000 job, maybe we can work with the homeowners association and get that extra trail paved on the east side at the full amount, and we contribute water rights there, and then maybe it's all good. And we work those good about that, I mean, that's an option.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me is the trail, I mean, you already have the base, right? It doesn't have to be built, except for us there.
It's just, the only thing that the developer will have to do is hold the contractor off. Say, can't say yet. So
I will say that without them out there doing the work of grading, it looks a lot better than that trail was last time I was out there looking at it. A lot more level, a lot more.
And I haven't been back out to look at it either, but it was.
It was pretty rough.
Again, that was to get to the original spec in the first place.
Correct.
So with the numbers that we talked about, part of that 147,000, 39,000 was bringing in an extra piece and a half to get it back to spec. Am I wrong with that statement?
I think you're right, that's why we're paying about five, that's not just not in spec. Why are we paying now, so that's in spec?
Well, and that's the question, that's not in the spec, so that might be a leverage point for them, because there's no way they can fix that, unless they move the whole trail.
They'll have to get their hands on it.
Unless they build the trail.
What's the delta, Jim, sorry, if we go from 2 to All-In Park, whatever it's
What he quoted me a really high number, but we probably ought to have somebody look at it, because the difference is, this section from here to here is not graded as really rough. It needs to be graded, filled, level, base put down, so this is a lot more work than just what they're doing around here. It would probably cost us some to do this over and above the watershed assumption. And the first time I walked it, and I tried to go, just walking, looking at this entry point, dumps out in the middle of the neighborhood next to a detention base.
That's the one thing I think a lot of, at least me, I look with, right? Just, here's another area where we keep taking on more parks and Greenbelt space.
So what, is there going to be an extension past 5 to the east? Is there something?
Yeah, that's Sacred Gardens too.
That's another 1,350 feet.
Is that already done, or is that?
No, that's what
Will
we're
be done, or?
That's part of that extra 40,000 Jim was talking about. So this first phase was 147,000, and then the next phase is 340.
So this is, as Brett said, that's what started it. They said, well, we're going to give you this too. And the original plat, and they're also called for, road base, and we said, we don't want it. Now we have some leverage because they can't just say, well, it's on the plat, which they were doing in the past.
Bottom line, this section is ours. Right,
Well, now we've got pieces of it. But
Most of it, yes.
also, yeah.
And the intent was yes.
yes,
Maybe.
one of them, they physically transferred maybe 3 or 4 of the sections. As they've been transferring them as they complete, before they just give them to us when they completed it, and say, it's on the plat, here you go. Changing losses, we can't do that anymore. We have to do it.
So what I'm hearing is we want to chat with Ivory, see if we can bid this out and get a couple different bids. And then, have a written agreement on what the details are. And then we still need to figure out if you're interested in water right swap or how you want to do that.
That's what we need to do for policy, right? For what we're going on. If we're gonna be involved, we have to get bids regardless, right?
If we're getting bids, yes, we have to get at least 3 bids.
That's probably the checkers thing,
Yeah, we're working on that.
I don't know how far down the road they are with that.
Well, they were in the spit office today saying they were gonna pay on Monday.
That,
They returned the water meter and it spit today and said they were gonna be back on Monday to pay, and I didn't say anything, but, if we say we're not ready, we'll just have to give that information to Ivan, and we'll have to hold off. Okay, any other discussions, any other comments?
Are we going to explore the homeowners association part of it?
I will continue to be on. You know, it's a funny situation because they say the homeowner's on it, but right now, Ivory is the homeowner. Just like Paracord, they were the homeowners.
No, I think they actually have
Do they?
yeah, it's turned over to the residents.
If you get to a certain % threshold, we can spot them and they go. That way the developer maintains authority to tell. Correct.
I'll explore that. Actually,
All right, thanks. Let's move on to discuss conflict of interest, the representation, and committee volunteers. I'll let you take this one.
Okay, all right, thanks, guys. I think, you know, what I'm asking for is I would like the opportunity to speak with independent legal counsel about some of my concerns. Following last meeting, I sent a memo to Brett, who in turn this week or last week sent out to board members. And in there, you kind of understand some of my concerns. Part of this last discussion, where again, how things were conveyed, I think again, had we had the right legal representation, and we're not in a sweet spot. I've asked for clarity a few times, and I've gotten no response, okay? Even like our last meeting, we talked about the annexation of parts of the reserve from tax area 13 into 7. And in doing so, we have to up it to a certain standard. Right now, we just simply don't, once it's in our test, it doesn't change things. I can't answer. But also regarding the reserve account that's going on there, the developer did mention reaching out to council, and the agency did reach out to that council. So I've got concern that we're taking guidance from developers. They're suggesting what legal counsel we should go to. And when I've got a simple question pertaining to my work, I don't get an answer. So, again, I'm asking, we can either go to the service district board, whoever else, or the trustee, I can go find my own. But in the memo that I outlined, I think I've got some valid concerns that aren't being addressed.
And I think we're not the experts, so you have valid points.
And again, I checked today, right, same thing, I'm not gonna get into much detail. You guys understand the meaning behind the memo, the meaning behind my question, my concerns, and I would like to get some clear, professional clarity. So I do have concerns. Let's see what the board's thoughts are on it.
So as far as legal, how do I go about selecting, a firm, treasurer, services? Right now, Matt Rose is managing doing that, his firm. Are you suggesting you want to move away from that and go somewhere else?
Yes.
And what firms are you suggesting that we take a look at? Do you have any ideas?
Well, Brett Horton, Jim and I were talking today, he, again, the Special Service District, that association, there could be something more possibly for the board of trustees. I've worked with others in the past, and I'm open to go there.
So there's, Mark Anderson, who represents the Association of Special Districts. I don't know if he's willing to take on any additional clients, but that would possibly be somebody that we could look into. He's very familiar with, government law that way. I don't know about, property rights, so, I think that, I'm open to going elsewhere, if that's what we'd like to do.
Well, in the last meeting that we had, after all I digested all that, I wasn't sure exactly what was going on. It got very complicated very fast, and I can see where we could use a lawyer on some of that stuff. I mean, that's very complicated what we did at the last meeting.
I gave you my 2 cents from last meeting, and I told him, I said, how is this going to work? Because we're about getting, right? That's what came out of my mouth. So,
Republican. So part of the conversation was, we had property that was received as a gift on the audited records of $4,085,000, whatever. And what's being discussed is to convey it to somebody else. Even those parties have changed for a significant reduction in rate. On top of that, we also, part of those conversations, convey other things. And the last meeting should went to closed session. Again, I would like to have independent counsel that doesn't have 30, 40, 50 years experience with Stansbury and the surrounding areas, that doesn't represent the county or Greenbelt County. Independent set of eyes that can say, we're going the right way around. So just many years ago, we were going to another major issue. I just don't want to do that.
I'm good with it, how do we move forward, that's the question. And how much money are we willing to throw at it? There's another question.
It's a question for you guys. I mean, there's some questions that have been presented that I won't budge on because I'm not comfortable.
Well, how do you, is there anybody against,
I guess that's the question. I mean, I can reach out or Jim or whoever, to reach out to whoever represents the special service district. If we're not comfortable there, I will go do what I used when I worked at the industrial depot. I deal with property, both the federal side and the private side.
Yeah, I think going to the special district first, and if they can't take it on, maybe they can point us in the direction of 3 people they would recommend, and now it's a completely different set of eyes, because it's not just property we're talking about, we're talking about selling property on the lake, what's in the bankruptcy and what's not, we have to have different legal representation, look at that too. Not necessarily, I think there's a total warrant code somewhere, with a fresh eyes.
Well, you mentioned in passing some of the concerns with using the same counsel, and which I was talking about, when you go to a doctor, it's not just a doctor, which one? You hire a contractor, which contractor? Same thing with attorneys, right? Depending on the topic, you should find that profession that does it, right? I'm not going to go to orthodontist when I broke my arm.
Well, I'll put that back at you. I'm dealing with an expert, and he hasn't fixed my foot. I go somewhere else.
Right, but you're not going to go to oncologist, right?
Correct.
Unless you have to.
But I'm just saying, you might not get what you're looking for. That's all I'm saying. There's a risk there, right? But I'm all for the other.
Well, let's start there. Jim and Ingrid, you can talk to Mark Anderson.
I've already done that.
Okay,
He is busy.
okay,
I have the name of other lawyers. One is through our insurance. They give us names. I can give it to you whoever wants to.
yeah, well, if you can get those names, we can put it on the agenda for our next meeting and, get their qualifications and how they raise and all that stuff and see how the board feels about moving forward that way. Okay, thank you. That's the legal representation. Conflicts of interest.
It can be the same conversation after.
So what do you want to do there?
Same thing, say, I would have the same conversation with that legal representative to talk
For
about.
all.
For all.
All right.
Okay.
Right, we're moving
So
forward.
I thought it was kind of clear in memo that as it led, here's why, and here's the situation. We'll start with these topics.
I want to start with the legal counsel having any potential conflict of
Yes, does he
interest.
not see this as a concern? Right? And we talked about, I'm just trying to be careful what I say, right?
Now, we can ask him certain questions.
Okay, any other questions with that? Seeing none, we'll move on to discuss bids submitted for the sound wall.
Sean, you're up.
I imagine you got some slack, please. Yes, as you all know, the Sound Wall Trail's been on the docket for a while. Yes, of course.
Thank you, Sean.
Absolutely. So we did the bidding process that closed last Wednesday, the 29th. We had an open field bid meeting with 3 contractors, Strong Excavation, Strong Solutions, and Acme Construction. As we opened the bids, we realized our engineer's cost estimate was considerably lower than the actual bid. So having said that, I have a ton of this information that I can send to everybody. I've just compiled this. Some more information on the itemized breakdown on 74 different line items in bid form, but this is a bit overshot of kind of where we are with the bids. Having said that, as far as responsive bidders, Strong Excavation and Strong Solutions were not fully responsive, as you can see on this snapshot of the Excel here. So we required a master schedule of the bids, with Strong Solutions, who was the low bidder of cost, did not provide. And part of the bid form, deep into the document, there was some missing information from Strong Excavation. So Acme is the only bidder that was fully responsive, and their bid was $1.2 million on the lower side to do the entire Sound Wall Trail plus that 250-foot extra piece to connect to Millmont. And the base bid to not do that 250 extra feet was 1.65, 640.45.
Sean, can you please go back to that, or Jim, to that previous slide? So missing Article 410, what, so they missed the bid line item?
Yes, so within the bid form, it's several pages long, and
Okay.
it's just one of the pieces that they overlooked and they didn't fill out. Technically speaking, it is not responsive fully.
Okay.
So at the advice of the procurement office at the state level, I talked to them and asked them what we might want to do because we only have one responsive bidder, which is well above our budget.
So let me ask you this question. Master schedule, Strong Solutions missed the master schedule, but they included all of the bid line items
Yes.
and dollar amounts.
Yes.
I believe in the contract, I'm not saying that we can't do what you're suggesting, but I believe that in the contract, it does allow the service agency to waive any formalities that they may or may not, where master contract or the master schedule isn't really a dollar amount, it's just that they failed to give you a schedule, which, in my opinion, if they meet all the requirements and they are lower, then if in fact that's what the documents say, that we can waive formalities if it's in the best, if it's in our best interest, that might be an option.
I will double check the bid documents themselves. After talking with the procurement office, they advised me that I absolutely probably shouldn't go back to them individually and say, hey, you're missing one thing. It's an independent thing. They said, probably don't do that. That's a bad call. But I can certainly look through the bid documents. But beyond that, we only have one responsive bidder, which kind of gives us some leeway to say, and even the Strong Solutions did submit the master schedule, we're still now $160,000 above what we had already allotted for. So then, where are we getting the extra $160,000? Maybe the county will maybe reapply to UDOT for funding, which we have looked into, and it may be possible, but we won't know for 6 to 8 weeks.
So another option, I believe that in the bid requires the removal of 18 inches of fill. And one option would be to do some potholing, because I know the service agency in years past had improved somewhat of that trail, and basically some road base, from what I recall. We might be able to pothole and if there's substantial material already placed, that might be a situation where we can reduce that cost.
Well, I do have, and again, I'll send all of this out to everybody. It's just a ton of extra data to put on the slideshow. I do have the engineer's estimate for unit prices versus what the actual unit prices were between all the different firms and where the engineer's estimate came low and where these guys were. There are some things I'm sure we could cut out, but I'm guessing this is going to be closer to where we would land, which is still above our $761,000 that we have allotted in the contract with you. But if we put it on hold, and we don't do it now, do we risk losing it to the season in the winter and during next spring, and our contract definitely ends next July, and we're cut off indefinitely to do this project with the 80/20.
Is that what new state money?
Yes.
When did it have to be, not until next fall, correct?
Next July is when this cuts out. July 26th, I believe, 2027.
So Sean, let me go back to this one. One thing, when we contacted UDOT, they have a reallocation or adjustment schedule meeting They're gonna try and get us into the August meeting, but, we can go into the September meeting and they may be able to extend schedule. And they may be able to adjust costs, so that's one of the options we're looking at, is to have them go.
And that's a maybe. They didn't promise me any of that. They have to make our plights and the narrative, the official document that their council agree if our plight is good enough to extend the contract anyway.
So I have a question. You go back to the dollar notes? So we have 80, 20, is this our $20 note?
Our 20 is 150.
No, that was based off of your original estimate, correct?
No, that was.
We had like an $800,000 number here, not based off of 1.2.
So,
Correct.
for this bid, we were planning on 150K, this is about 300.
240.
The original contract calls for $761,000, 153 from us, 609 from UDOT. After extended costs were already given to us, so we're now $761,000 and change all in from UDOT. After we got the engineer's estimate, which I thought was low, I added 20% on top of that, which came in at about $720,000. So I thought, okay, we're okay. Now I get the real cost. So I didn't base anything off other than what I imagined the engineer's estimate was with the 20% contingency.
So let me tell you, the 80-20 split is at the $750,000 projected cost. Any cost above that split is 100%.
And that was from 2019 when the original plans came together. So now we're 8 years, 7 or 8 years past, when this.
Speaking of legal counsel, there's a $300,000 difference between responsive and non-responsive. I think it's worthwhile looking at the contract, because we've done it personally, where we can waive certain formalities. Their price didn't have anything, they submitted all of it, they crossed all the T's, dotted all the I's with all of the dollar amounts. The only thing they failed to do was to submit a schedule. In my mind, that can be very defensible.
There are several conditions in the standard conditions that dictate based on how we direct the enzyme to firmly determine and demand what we want with their bids. And in several places it does specifically say that a master schedule is required, perhaps at a different location than one of the other 14 documents. It might say something slightly different.
Again, they would have to be based on legal opinions. So I just feel like $300,000 is worth taking a look at.
Is there any obligation from the county?
No.
There's no obligation. We have applied just in the last day or so. We talked to them and we've given them the information to see if they're willing to throw in anything, but we haven't heard back just yet.
So if you remember also, like we were talking, I got all the ways to talk about Wednesday, but we talked about some of the numbers, and did you get a chance to talk to Jen on some of those prices?
I reached out, I haven't heard that yet.
Okay. And then there's other part of the discrepancy, right? We're on like the insurance estimate. We inflated contingency to a certain amount. That's based off UDOT's agreement with us. Not significantly out of it. So even if we went back and redesigned, there's the potential for 60-40 split, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, if we open up an entirely new deal, it would definitely be 60-40. If UDOT is willing to hear the plight to extend this and give more money in this time frame, we would still stay on the 80-20, definitely.
We could cut scope one. And then the other part was, you and I were talking about, even during the previous was, there were some unit prices that were low. It's like asphalt was cubic yard. So it throws me off, right? Concrete typically this, when you get to dirt and asphalt, it's like by the ton, or by the square foot. I don't know if that's a factor into why maybe things are off, but it was worth the conversation.
Well, there was a big difference in Acme, and again, I mean, I got 6 spreadsheets that shows all this stuff. In Acme Construction, who is the responsive bidder, technically speaking, their mobilization cost came in at that $500,000 a change compared to $168,000 versus $70,000 in mobilization costs, which would make the difference to be now in our budget.
Right. What we also talked about last week was that if you take that maturity down, You can see what the unit prices are. It's like, on other entities, sometimes the mobilization is, at no point can your mobilization exceed 5% of total bid.
Yeah.
What they opted to do is put all their profit in here and just basically show their costs.
Yeah.
Other people have opted to show lower than their fee because their profit overhead is each from unit prices. You can't dictate how a contractor wants to bid, unless you do it in the bid document.
Right.
So, we can't use that as that, like, oh my gosh, we're trying to do this because the unit prices were much lower.
Right. So I guess to me, the question is, it's been a week since that closed, now we're presenting the numbers, we don't know if we want to reallocate impact fee funds to go somewhere else, or get back with UDOT, or to a county for more funding, but now the contractor's wondering what we're going to do.
How long are these bids good for? Are they? I mean, technically, 6 months?
I mean, if I called any of these guys, they might pull out and say never mind if they felt so inclined, but.
My question is the roadway improvements. I mean, we're coming down to the roadway, going across, that's really nothing. For some curb cuts and.
Well, I don't know if you have the snapshots, Jim, that I sent you that break down what all goes into the itemized cutouts and what the roadway improvements are. I can send this all to everybody because it's a ton of stuff.
I don't know what else we're doing in the road. That's my question.
Well, I know it's the ADA improvements, the J barriers,
They could have put those costs elsewhere, like, that's such a hard,
Yeah.
you're almost saying, okay, then I want to take the road improvement for strong, but then I want to come to ASME and say, okay, ASME, we like these two things, but we like to hire a road for this for strong. You can't do that.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying is to get the trail in, that's all it is, right? Build a trail, forget the road.
well, and some of the roadway improvements include the kind of sort of miscellaneous stuff like site prep, mobilization. So I think a lot of those costs are absorbed in there with 65,000 here, 140,000 there, which pump them up.
Some of that was also, cutting curb to accommodate the ADA, and it was also restriping and restructuring of the section where that's gonna come down and hit the intersection. So, and I don't know where the concrete, things at the bus stop that UDOT demanded, is that in roadway improvements, or is that in the trail itself? I guess it depends on how they did it.
Yeah, and I've broken it down, and again, approximately, it's hard to say how they did it specifically, but I do have this all broken down and itemized per how they did it, per the section in forms, which anyone can look at and break down. There are 76 different line items. But, so now, what do we want to do?
So, the state money, we have to do roadway improvement. We just can't finish the trail because it cleans that up so much.
The only thing we don't have to do is essentially landscaping and irrigation on our property. Roadway improvements and trail construction are
Part of the state.
So let me see if I will get this straight. We allocated how much? So $761,000 cumulative
From 8 years ago,
Our 20% of that was
153,000 and change.
and if we were to go to this 905 amount, based on just simple math I was trying to do, we're talking.
They're not responsible there.
Oh, that's right. Well, so I use 905, we would be 325 out of pocket for us, so you can just add the additional. Not necessarily.
So I think what he's also saying is that share was based off of the 7-7 budget. You can do the 80-20 split there, that delta is 100%, not necessarily change.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. So if we were, I know they're not a proper bidder. Strong Solutions, we would be able to look for $325,000, because that's what's above the delta. What I'm saying is, since they're not, and you shift to Acme, it's 325 plus the difference of 165 and 905. So we're talking $500,000.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
That's a big jump. That's why Fred's suggesting maybe there's an out to go this, the under bidder, but it's still higher than we wanted to allocate.
We're 100% higher than
When I talked to the state office,
I was nervous that bidders could not come back and rebid, but after talking to them, putting out an official response on the DSTM and U3P, and letting them know exactly why they were not accepted for the bid, we can rebid it if we feel. We can rebid it if we feel so.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Well, we hit the big right, change the scope.
Well, there is a line item in the bid form that we can throw out that's irrelevant, the restructuring of an existing retaining wall in the south end that doesn't exist, that we thought existed. We take that line item out, now we change the scope of work. I don't know if that's kind of a close thing, I'm just saying.
I mean, none of us have been able to see the actual bid, but I think we have some options. I don't think we can make a decision here. I would recommend, though, that we get a legal opinion on the, if the bid says we can waive formality to get that question answered.
So I guess my next question is maybe that takes this week into next week, and next week, and
Look, contractors, you don't need to issue an award contract for 2 weeks after they give you the bids. It's very common to wait a month or 6 weeks. I mean, it takes, even after you award it, there's 2 week period where they have to get the bonding and all that paperwork, so.
well, I guess
That's not a
Yeah.
concern on my part.
no, I guess my further question is, the last 2 winters, we haven't really had a winter, so if we were hoping that this would get done this year, if this is the direction we're going, we would be favored of assuming this might not get done this year and pushing into next year.
We don't have the cash flow.
That's what I was talking about last week.
So we can apply it to Will County for more funds, you got for more funds on maybe they will, maybe they won't.
What did you say, Ingrid?
We don't have the cash.
We don't have the cash flow. Once we get the grant, we can do it, but I don't know how long it will take for us to
Yeah,
get the
timing
grant.
on reimbursement from the grant.
And we're getting it at the end of the year. And so,
Oh, I get what you're saying.
You know, on the bid documents, was there, it needed to be completed by this time? Like, for instance, July of next year.
No, we didn't have any LDs or permanent date, we gave a tentative schedule saying that we wanted to mobilize by August 17th, finish by December 1, but that's why we needed a master schedule from them, that we would offset if the winter came days after, and that it had to be the work started again, we offset that there was no absolute definite thing.
Again, right, we talked about, I think the numbers are so high. You throw out all bids, you might have to redesign something. But again, based on some of our conversations we've had, that you put in the July date. You do say now, just say June, say we'll be done by June 30th, and you're gonna have $2,000 a day on leads.
Well,
But even at that price, now, did we offer up a engineer estimate for the 770 all? Or was it just, some agencies do it, some don't, like FA does it, like Parks and Rec, or sorry, like US Forest Service, they no longer do that.
Yeah, at the advice of the engineers, we did all the materials and all the units, but we didn't do an engineer's cost estimate on purposes or anything like that. So I mean, it's public record what the agreement is that we have with you on our funds that anyone could access.
So just to add to this discussion, I got a call back from the county later today. Andy Welch told me, he said, well, one of the problems is we don't see this on some master plans, but it's on other master plans. So I sent him all the information so that they can check it out and see. They might be able to find another funding source if they're given more for the time to do that. So, the county is also looking to see if there's anything they can do. So,
But if we want to throw everything out, redesign, rebid, do it differently, and adjust our documents, that's okay, I just want to know, at some point.
so I don't think we need to make a decision tonight.
Yeah.
But I do think we need to, the three options that I see is, do we redesign, rebid, do we look at changes, can we accept the lower bid, and look at cost offsets, and in other places that we could maybe do it. I think, regardless, I think we're gonna slip it to next year.
Why would the county have that interest?
Because it's part of their Truro County package.
Is there a trail system? Are they gonna consider that?
Yes.
Let's put like, we keep hearing, but we don't really see any kind of support.
Yeah.
We talk about it, but we don't have any, they don't support.
I went down the document where they actually got the bid, and it was done by him costing up the Truro County Health, or the issues doing all the bids for the county back then. And, it was done through their county offices to get the bid, and how it ended up here is another story, but it ended up at Stansbury instead of being managed out of the county. So there is some connection there that they need to have this part done, and it's on the Master Utah Trail Plan. It's not on the total plan. It's just.
Any more questions for the meeting?
What would board members like to see so they can?
More money?
Okay, that I can't.
Just send out the bid tabulations so we can all take a look at it, and if you have any questions, we can talk to you directly.
Can I ask a question? Is that possible or not?
Sure, go ahead.
What is this trail supposed to do? I mean, does it
Clean up that, everything behind that,
yeah,
fire
just
department.
along the sound wall, all along there.
Yeah, ultimately, it's, Risha's part of Tooele County Pathway is they want to run a trail from Tooele all the way out, past 138, all the way to the road. So this is a chunk of that trail system that they're putting together. So that's,
Should they pay for it then? I mean,
well, we've asked that question.
yeah, I guess it's not, it's like, the last thing, I walk around the lot, the last thing I want to do is walk any closer to the noisy highway. You know, it's like, anyway. That's why I'm trying to decide, you know, what, you know, whose master plan is it? You know, I guess it's hard to say, we thought to tie everything together. It is.
Part of their interconnection.
Remember, they don't want to walk on the trail right next to Oak Canyon Road either.
Okay, let's see, discuss prioritization of project impact fee funding.
And we sort of touched on that in the last section. So currently we have on hand after paying dues for their section, the last payment on parking lot, we have $760,000 on hand. This goes back to Ingrid's statement about cash on hand and cash flow. Right now, we're projecting between impact fees and interest payments in 2026 that we will pull in another $190,000, which leaves us about $950,000 for 26. We ultimately project that by the time all the buildings complete, we'll be at 1.5, maybe 1.6, depending on structure of the builds. So this is the total amount of impact fees we can expect to get at the end of the day, but you also have to consider when they come in. So for this year, outstanding projects for this year, we had Oscarson Park, which was the plan. We had the Soundwall Trail. This is using the high bid number here. And this is the planning number we have for Mill Pond. We don't have a firm fix for that. Trail section of Mill Pond that goes from the parking lot down to the end. If you'll notice, so that leaves us enough money, theoretically, to handle if it's in the cash flow. But it doesn't leave us a whole lot of money for out-year bills for things like Oscarson Park, the actual build of Oscarson Park, doing anything on Village of Oak Canyon, and doing anything, if we're going to do anything over the section by the reserve. So cash flow, I talked about that a little bit. No funding for Oscarson. It doesn't include the 250 feet of trail to the parking lot, although that's a minimal cost if we're doing the Soundwall Trail, just in addition to that. that includes it, we use some, but the additional funding to do other stuff doesn't include that, that's included in the 500 whatever. So, these are the other funds that, other projects that we potentially have, and we're also seeing a diminishing return on availability of capital funds as our costs grow on the execution. So, the question to the board is, where do you want to prioritize these projects? And I'm not expecting an answer tonight, but I just want to raise it so that everybody's aware that there are a couple of limitations on what we can do with, when we can do it with the available impact fee funds, aside from the subsidy impact. So, I don't know if there's any discussion you want to have now, or if you want to think about that, or you need more information from the Soundwall Trail issue. But just be aware that there are some limitations on available.
Let's talk about it, because this is what I was asking for, right? Like, once it's all built out, it's now we're giving a total of like 1.5. Right, the focus seems to be on trail systems and not usable space. So we had a meeting, a couple meetings ago, we talked about, right, it was presented with these phosphorus and park options, A, B, C, D, whatever. And the original option was for 3.2 million. The last meeting came back with 5 phases or 4 phases. And when it's all built out, now it's going to be 3.7, and it doesn't have a parking lot. And now we're saying total for everything we're going to be 1.5. Why are we, and I just had last week also, that we already hired the line to do the site phosphorus previously. So we get hired them again, and they're designing a park which we can't afford. Not to mention the other obligations we got. You mentioned Full Line Village, whatever park that's in. If we have other obligations. So we can keep talking about the Soundwall Trail like that trail is important. But what really is the priority?
I think it's just important just because we receive funds, right? And it would be a good asset.
And, yeah, I just want to know what's the street, spending all that money.
But,
80% of 750,000 is being paid for by the state.
yeah. I think that's, I mean,
That's the part that's exciting me.
Okay, but that same dollar amount could be used with, excluding UDOT, right? That's the dollar amount, that commitment can be used to finish the new line.
$200,000.
That's what you were saying, like 250,000. So what is the priority? We've been talking about mill line a couple times too, where that thing keeps going and going and going. If the focus is here, when are we actually doing mill line? We're never going to touch ostracism if we're not. Why are we taking an architect $100,000 to design something we can't afford?
Sounds like we better start cutting some projects.
Yeah, that's a good something.
As you're talking about this stuff, I mean, we did have a public comment just sitting here, right? Same thing. I mean, we're gonna have $200,000. Yeah, UDOT's giving us money, but let's look at the grass and phosphorus instead, making all those residents happy compared to let's start at Soundwall, we may not even be able to afford or short that part that we talked about doing for 10 years that haven't been done. I guess we do have a few little projects that are sitting there that just haven't been looked. We talked about these two, how long has that been there? Before I think any of us were on the board.
Yeah, I think it's,
That's curious as our problem, I'd rather just finish.
So when you say finish, what do you see that being over there?
Well, I thought we were talking about on this bid, finish a little path from the sidewalk to the new thing, or the new path.
Yeah, but we don't need that.
Finish trail down below.
We don't need that, the trail doesn't go.
You still have the sidewalk all the way up towards the bank, do you not? I thought that's why you're going to complete, because you do have the trail at the bank.
No.
Is there not a sidewalk on that side of the road all the way up towards the commercial?
What's that, the new site?
You mean on frontage road? There is one parallel.
Right.
Oh,
And then when it gets there, it goes to the street. So if you would finish the sidewalk from there to the parking lot, because right now, you take that sidewalk, get onto the street, to get
So
on
you're
the
saying
park.
it's a sidewalk though?
Was that not part of option B, this bid that we just talked about?
Is it included in option B, 250 feet?
But what I'm saying is you're talking a 5-foot sidewalk, a 3-foot sidewalk that is on frontage road, right? I think it's 3. Isn't it?
It's
This is a trail,
So,
so,
standard sidewalk.
yeah, it's a standard sidewalk. So instead of a trail, what you're saying is, forget the trail, just put a sidewalk in to connect.
Connect it, and then if we want to finish it on, I don't know what we're taking, I mean, previous board this, and previous board that. We got residents who are saying, how are we trying to justify a $1.2 million project? Most of us can get our heads around it, it makes no sense. It's like going out there and saying, well, I said $400 Costco, what did it cost you? Right? They're gonna match a certain amount of funds, but it's still gonna cost us a certain amount. Is it gonna cost us 2, is it gonna cost?
Yeah, it would be interesting to see what they come back and say about funds. Because that fund came from a long time ago, right? I mean, that's, even at 3% over 7 years, that's a lot more funds. So,
Yeah, that original grant was to go from village, then full candy now, 30. Yeah, plus 138.
all the way.
To go along that whole thing. But there's been so much buildup, there's no way you can go down the other way. So we had hoped that we would have enough money by not doing that other half of the trail to cover what we were spending there. Obviously, that was not.
My opinion is I just like it. The trail hasn't been started, right? Realistically, the trail is not been started. No function. And you go on. That's just me personally, I don't know why.
But what does that mean? What does it mean, finish no pump? That's why.
At this point, right now it's dirt and weeds, I don't care if it's just grass now. Like, I'm getting frustrated. We hear all the time that we have a crappy winter, but it's like, I can't say, how many people complain when it's flooding? It's dirt and mud. We get snow. So, it's not a complaint, but like, let's get the grass, it's not a usable space at this point in time. Realistically, that's not usable, unless you want a four-wheeler to go down in there and tear up the dirt, but like, let's finish that out with the grass. Like, we talk about phosphorus. Maybe we don't put all these fancy menus in, we should the grass work.
So we did go back to Oscarson and ask for a bare bones bid, just to do a certain few amenities and all. And then it came back in the 500 range, which is certainly doable to do something down there at least.
I think we're getting to a point, we've had residents complain about Oscarson. We've had, we have had residents complain about that. Minus what you not doing all their construction, but that's not our fault. But, like you said, we're getting money to do it, but
So until today, on the sale wall, we were talking over $200,000, and getting another $700,000 back, for the state. I was very excited about that, and if you're talking $500,000, we're now, this is 12 hours old that we've done, that I know about this.
we were planning 150, right, now we're talking $500,000.
Yeah, $500,000 now, but now we're talking a whole different thing.
When we've also now forecasted total buildup is 1.5 in impact fees. We don't have infinite money coming in.
Right. We've been talking about that.
But yet, all we see on the Oscarson is, multiple projects that are, $3 million plus.
I agree.
And again, not like we can go out and tax anybody more, right? We are taxed to the max. So even if you want to compensate with the other funds, you still have, because we're not going to give more money.
So the bottom line is, what do we want to finish first?
I think it's worth the conversation, but again, right, you got planning, you have funding, right? So these projects are being planned, and yet up until recently, we don't have the money coming in. Now we know, you've got 1.5. Are you going to spend $500,000 to finish a trail, when it really probably needs to go somewhere else?
You're talking.
You know, right, like, if that is all we have for total building, where's the best use of that money? For me, it's not on a trail.
For you, it is where?
We've got Oscarson Park that it's been talked about for, how long has it been on our maps? And now we've got Whole Line Park where everyone can go. I think those things are going to be used.
Oscarson was the back in the service agency.
No, I think it's more like 2017.
And it was part of the service agency when I worked here, and that was before 2013.
I'll look it up, I thought it was around 2.
You don't have enough funds to do one, it's either one or the other, which one you gonna do? You don't have enough funds to do Bull Canyon or.
That's a great question, especially for the guys that have been here for 6 hours.
That's why I brought this up. You've got all these areas, what do you want to do? Now, certainly we can offset some of this with some grants, but it's not going to be all of that. We've been pretty effective at getting grants.
I think we put our money towards trying to get amenities that have something there, or have to be started, or whatever, to a point that is a usable piece of land for the residents in the park. And then, like you said, down the road, and we're talking, come up with 3 times, this trail is part of the county trail system and the state trail. They're not in here ponying up money. I'd rather we say, we're not doing that. You guys can come pony up some money, we'll put it in 25 different stages for all I care. We get a grant every year for 30K and do another 25 feet, but like, let's get the amenities people have been thinking about wanting for a lot longer. We have a rescue city of Oscars on dirt. We spent how much money there already? How much was the restroom? 101? See, so like, you have a great point. Like, we don't have enough. I don't think it's prudent. If we don't have enough, it's not prudent to start another project.
On my way over here,
Looking at $500,000.
Please, on your way over here.
I said, we've got to get something done. Finished.
I agree. I don't want to do the trail for about $500,000. That wasn't the deal. So, unless we get some more money, I wouldn't vote for the trail. A lot of people are not excited about what we're doing with the new parking lot in Neil Pond. Talk to the people in Oscar to the park. They just want some grass to get cut the dust down. The neighbor said he's been waiting 15 years, what he told me. So,
That's not what's being designed.
but
That's not what's being designed.
I know.
I've talked to Glenn, we both thought it'd be great to have Oscarson Park instead of the Oscarson Memorial Park, because he's gonna die before it's ever done, he'll take it over there.
But have you seen what's being designed?
I have, like I say, I don't know whether, you just put grass and a couple of trees and a table, I don't know.
Their lowest bid was what, $1 million? I think it was $1 million.
Around
That was grass, a couple, it's what the community wanted. They wanted a sidewalk around, right? They wanted a couple pavilions for shade and grass.
the track all the way around.
And a playground.
I think that was like a rendering right over that too.
There was sidewalk.
No, there was sidewalk,
There was not all the way around.
that was number one priority.
So if we're gonna do that, then we're looking for the portion.
Yeah.
There wasn't one around the turn.
So some of those have been waiting for 15 years, they're not gonna get some of that option.
But you're still talking $1 million.
And that did not include, like, the playground that everybody was asking for, it didn't include some other stuff. That's what drove the cost on the other ones. We asked them, there were 5 things that people
we got a grant for one. We can go get grants for other pieces. You have to do something. I'm with Kyle, like, that has stuck in my head multiple times as I've driven around the park. Let's just finish something, or get something.
So that's what I'm asking, what do you want to do? No time, no adjust.
Either of the two, my well's not gonna go towards the trail. I'd say that, I'm right there, like, I'd say Oscarson or Mill Pond. Where I, at this point, we can see Mill Pond and let it go grass. Let it be down on it, you know. If we only have 1.5, that's the hard truth of it, and that's what it is. It's not like it's a number we're pulling out of nowhere, the residents can't see, it's all transparent. See the pricing just like we can, so. I said one of those two, that's just my, I'm 1/6, that's my 2 cents.
Is it $1 million for just grass and a sidewalk around Oscarson Park?
That's their projection, I don't know how accurate that is. We found that, enzyme density low, it tends to be high a little bit. But it's probably in that range.
There's a lot of bill last, I mean.
So, like, part of the follow-up, when we post everything on this board meeting, can we post again all those plans from what was presented initially to where we're at now?
For Washington.
Sure. The two things that, you know, they have to push for those high dollars, but if we can break it down to something that's affordable and manageable.
Like I said, after the last meeting, we asked them to do bare bones. And it was about 500. To do grass and just a few things, so, that's probably in the range that's doable.
Especially if we're talking about whatever we have. We're planning to spend, speaking to that, Mike, sorry. What I was saying is 500 is way more reasonable, especially if you're pulling 150 out of the trail stuff now, because we're kind of earmarking that. Now it's cheaper.
I don't know if we have the answers, we'll keep pushing through, but we're not gonna spend more than we have budget for, so.
So I'm looking at Mill Pond and Oscarson now as project for month. That's fair to say.
Again, I'm 1/6.
Well, I think that's fair, but we probably also, in planning phase, we probably need to, on the sound wall, or on the amphitheater, probably need to draw that, you know, scale that back, a minute or two, and like Kasey said, just put some grass in, and I don't know how we deal with the ADA situation, but that's just gonna have to be bare bones.
So we do have some money to help us do the trail out.
And let's get some costs put together, let's take a look at the new proposed redesign of Oscarson at 500,000, see what that covers, and see if we can get some costs for the amphitheater, and look where we're at budget-wise at that point.
Yeah, I should have a better number once we get the final drawings back on that trail section.
Does that sound okay, everybody? We address then, and unless we can substantially, reduce the cost on that trail, I think, I would probably not spend money there as well.
I was more hopeful talking to the county that they may push for that. Someone would go through the system.
Okay.
It'd be nice if they pick up whatever the part is from the opening from the state. Okay.
Thanks, Jim. Mill Pond Bridge repair.
We've had some significant movement on this right now. I don't know if anybody looked out there. Been back and forth with Rocky now about when they're going to start doing the drilling under the bridge. They started, was told early in the week, and we start next week, and I said, well, we have a major event on the avoid that. She's going to start in the following week, but it looks like they started. We have two things going on in the bridge, so everybody's aware. They're replacing two of the junction boxes, one there and one over on the golf course. So they were all marking that today. They will do that tomorrow, and that's the reason for the shutdown on tomorrow, is that they'll be replacing those two boxes. In the meantime, they started drilling under the bridge to put Rocky Mountain power underneath there. Lumen was being a little difficult on disconnecting theirs. They wanted money to basically disconnect the wire and cap it. I got word yesterday that they said we're going to do it for free of charge, so that one will be in the cap. So now we've got the utilities taken care of. The next step is we need to have a complete, have that repair complete by August of next year. So I think we would like to move forward as fast as possible. I sent you out the latest plans I have, which was last year. Once we get a good set of plans, we can do put out a bid to get whatever work we want to get done. I think the last thing we said was once we got to this point, we were going to order the blue lens ourselves. Is that correct, Brent?
That is our decision.
So the plan was to order the blue lens and bring in a contractor to move the stuff around. So that's where we are, is putting that information together so we can start looking for demo and replace that.
Thanks, Jim. Next order of business is discuss hiring a new general manager replacement. Jim is scheduled to retire in January of 27, correct? So we need to discuss that process moving forward on how we want to go through the interview process, go through the advertising process, and so forth.
So I put together, this is where, I put together a list of, and it's in your packet, and it's on here. Last December, we were pretty far along on this protocol for this. We never did get that finalized, and it was never voted on. So this is not a board approved process. I'm just going to give you where the policy committee was at that point in time. So we had gotten the purpose and the applicability statements approved by the board. We defined the requirements. So there's the requirements list that we wanted to do. This process should select the most qualified individual. It's supposed to include a rigorous vetting process. The idea was to select somebody that would give the SSA the best long-term success, develop competitive compensation. We felt, the policy committee felt that a majority vote, a supermajority vote of 5 to 6, would be required to hire the active eventual replacement. The idea was that if he doesn't have the support of the supermajority of the board, he is not going to be successful. Meets the minimum job requirements. We wanted a qualified assessment process as part of that. Board members on the hiring committee must be limited so as not to create a quorum. You can't have more than 3 board members on whatever committee we put together to select and go through the hiring process. And board members may apply for vacancies, but if they would be excluded from any vetting process or hiring. So, we had outlined some roles and responsibilities. The board chair would establish the strategy and facilitate the process. He would set the schedule. We need to have, we're going to have a replacement by here. The schedule has to meet these requirements. Collect and consolidate the feedback as required, and define the charter for the hiring team that was going to put this together. Board members will define their hiring requirements, vote interview candidates, provide feedback. If we wanted to have a third-party subject matter expert, they would assist as required by the chair. Policy committee would monitor compliance with appointed policy. Board clerk would facilitate communication, put out any announcements that were required, notify candidates of whatever the schedule was and where they were supposed to be. HR would verify that the announcement met the process requirements and monitor the compliance. The current GM, if leaving voluntarily, would participate in the interviews and provide feedback. And the selection lead, whoever that is, would select the team that he wanted to work with and direct the activities of the committee and ensures everything is done. So that was the background for how we're going to do it. So the steps we put together, and this came from about 3 different boards that we put this together. The chair would identify who to conduct a new hire. We just got that. Chair establishes a tentative hiring schedule, and the chair would assign the committee lead to lead the hiring. Board concurrence would be required with the team, and the team lead would then develop and present a proposed strategy along with staffing costs and detailed schedule. The board would approve that strategy, cost, and schedule, and go back to the hiring committee would then draft posting, which would include things like what's the qualifications and the hiring metrics for hiring that. The chair would facilitate the discussion and approval. And directs the committee to modify the posting and return to the board. A little bit of stuff in the clerk. The post listing, collect the application, file candidate summary, distribute the candidate summary and application packages. The hiring committee would then assess those things as they came in against the criteria that were established, and the lead would present the candidate summary of the top candidates and recommendations to the board, would then say, okay, you can do that in a closed meeting according to board discussion, and the board would direct the hiring committee to interview certain candidates, and again, a closed meeting is okay for the hiring committee. But with schedule interviews, the candidates and the hiring committee would perform individual interviews and update the candidate summary. The hiring committee would then present the candidate summary and recommendations to the board, including salary recommendation. Again, it's in a closed meeting, is okay, and the chair would facilitate board members' discussions in the meeting. Board action. In an open meeting, they may vote to extend an offer, they may vote to assign actions to the hiring committee again, go back and look at stuff, or they can vote to hold additional interviews which support the schedule. Clerk would finally extend an offer. It says the clerk would negotiate the offer with the candidate. I think that's a board requirement. If the offeree is a current board member, acceptance of the offer is also an effective resignation from the board. Board would ratify final employment package, and the committee lead updates the candidate summary, and the clerk initiates onboarding process. So, that was what the policy committee came up with. I think there are some issues maybe in there that we might not want to consider, but it's at least a starting point in the process to hire. You're not bound by this, if you've never put into place, food for discussion.
So when we were looking 2 years ago, we went through the hiring process. We posted an advertisement. Kyle and myself conducted a few interviews, and then Jim ended up coming into the mix at a highly reduced salary, and so the board chose to have Jim come on board as a manager. That seemed like a very simple process. It seemed like a very good difficult process. Which way do you want to go? Your thoughts? The combination of both, or do you want try to strictly adhere to this, even though none of us have really discussed it or talked about it, or approved it?
So, it could be the, as guideline, just try, you know, I don't want to be bound by rules and stuff like that.
Okay? Kasey?
I was just gonna say, regardless of whatever we do with this, I think we as a board need to make a determination that we're going to have somebody hired by a certain point, so we don't keep kicking a can down the road, and then December 12th, we're trying to hire a GM to train the gym. So, my own, like, I'm kind of with Wayne, this is pretty good guidelines, as long as we follow legal stuff the way we should. But I think we have a hard mandate that we kind of enforce on ourselves to say, look, we're going to somebody hired by 12/1, so they have 2 months to train the gym, or they have a month to train the gym, because this job's going to be a lot for somebody to come in and pick up on day 1.
The current budget allows that new hire start in June of 2026, so we're a little behind schedule. June of 2026, last 2 months ago.
I think that's just July, but.
Sorry, July. Okay, so we're only a month behind, so we're not doing too bad.
So let me ask you, Mayor, surgery, you're returning in January, so we're going to go 5 months without a GM?
No, I'm saying we hire, we need to get somebody. We need to get somebody hired like pretty quick.
Okay.
So, the schedule was built to give 6 months overlap, I'm not sure you need 6 months overlap. But we are probably getting to the point where we need to do something to start kicking the can down the road.
So the budgeted amount is $120,000 salary plus benefits, that's what's in the budget. So.
Do we have a committee first, or?
That's what we want to discuss and talk about, how we want to move forward with this process. I don't think it needs to be as difficult as this, but we need to have concurrence with the board members on how we want to move forward. So as far as getting the advertisements out, Jim can work with Ingrid and update. It was pretty thorough. I thought the job description that we had posted before was pretty thorough, but it might need some tweaking.
Yeah, we might want to review the job description,
Yeah.
questions, how you want to do it, want everybody review it, want to have a select couple review it. The way this is built is so that you will say, okay, say Kyle and Kasey and Wayne on the thing, you guys go back and review the requirements, and bring the requirements back to the board and say, this is what the requirements are, we're hiring to that. Then you build the, you say, okay, if that's what we're going to hire to, they can also discuss salary range at that point in time. That's what you use to build the hiring document that would go out. So, or we can just collect stuff from everybody and put it together and review it that way. So the first step, I think, is to review the qualifications and salary level and build a document that says, we're hiring for new GM, here are the, what I would say, skills, knowledge, abilities, and performance. That's what we use for the
Job description.
Job description. And this is what we think the salary range should be for what we pay.
So we can't post anything right now, you know?
We could, but we could just repost one we had.
I'm going to review the job description.
But I think we need to do that for it.
Yeah, I would say Julie Ingrid can update the job description and then send it out. If we have any questions, we can talk to Jim or Ingrid individually. If we need, like something needs to be added. And then once that's in place, post it and then we'll start receiving applications. But in the meantime, we need to figure out who wants to be on that hiring committee, original, what to do
we need to, what schedule do you want to be on? What's the role of whoever we select as the hiring committee, and when do we expect to meet these timelines? So, we need to rough that out at least get started.
Jim, if you could just kind of tentatively, put something together so we can review it.
Okay.
And work okay with that, and then, October hire date? Is that too soon or too late?
I think that's a doable date, and I think it gives us enough overlap.
Anybody have any objections to that? We can find October.
October 1st?
Well, sometime in October, let's look at the schedule. That gives you at least, that gives
Is
you.
that not doable?
Will board reply to you now?
I'm not.
Whoa!
You see that, October first.
Document is too aggressive.
Well, I think we can shoot for October.
Additionally, I mean, it's only like 3-4 meetings away.
She's like, yeah, like,
We don't know what the qualifications are, what the vetting process, we're gonna try to actually do that in 2 months. I don't think so.
Well, job descriptions just need to be reviewed.
I mean,
You've seen it, some of us haven't.
So
I know, but I'm just saying, doesn't have to be created, it's created, we just need to review it.
So how about if we have a date that, well, let's take a shot at updating them here. If you want to select a couple of people to work with us offline to sort of vent that, and maybe shoot to have a draft back to the board next meeting.
The 19th?
Huh?
August 19th?
Draft.
Are they gonna have to live in Stansbury?
No.
Be from outside?
Unless you want to make that a qualification, but I don't think we'll limit ourselves to that.
Well, not right now.
So Brett, who would you think you would want on the board, the hiring?
Who's willing, who would like to be, anybody like to be part of that?
I would like to be part, I don't want to chair it, but I'll be part of it.
Okay. Got Wayne's help, anybody else? Rob?
I think I'd like to see what's available first. We're not ready to employees, we already got some documents.
No, I'm just saying, when it comes to the hiring committee, that's whether you see the document or not, you want to be involved in it.
Right now.
Let's get the document reviewed. Everybody, so everybody can put their say and then we'll move forward. Okay. Let's move on. Board review and possible approval of July 15, 2025 board meeting minutes. Is there any questions? Comments or? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I make a motion that we approve, the July 15, 2026 board meeting minutes.
I'll second.
A motion from Kasey for approval and a second from Kyle. Wayne, how do you vote?
Okay.
Kyle?
Hey.
Brett is yes. Rob?
Yes.
And Kasey?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Board review and possible approval of planning committee work meeting minutes. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Quick summary.
Yeah. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the July 15, 2026 planning committee work, the minutes as they are.
I'll second.
A motion from Kyle and second from Brock to approve the meeting minutes of July 15th, the planning committee work meeting. Wayne, how do you vote?
Okay.
Kyle?
Yes.
Brett, yes. Brock?
Yes.
And Kasey?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Board review and possible approval of transfer of water rights credit to Iron Mills to improve the trail section.
I would make a motion that we table this based on the conversation by the board, to a further date, to allow ourselves to get bids and more questions and legal, standing as we talked about. So I'd make a motion to table the possible approval of transfer right water credits to Iron Mills.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Do you mind repeating? Basically not hear you.
I would make a motion that the board tables the possible approval of transfer water rate credits to Iron Mills to improve. Based on our comments tonight, wanting to get more bids, and find out our legal standing, and we need representation, this item needs to be tabled.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion from Kasey and a second from Brock. Wayne, how do you vote? Kyle?
Okay.
Brett is yes. Brock?
Yes.
And Kasey?
Yes.
Thank you, motion passes unanimously. Let's see, possible approval of hiring a new general manager replacement. I guess we can have that as an approval item that we need to move forward with that. I guess that was the intent there.
I'll make a motion to approve the hiring of a new general manager.
Second.
Thank you. Wayne, how do you vote?
Yay.
Kyle?
Yay.
Brett is yes. Brock?
Yes.
And Kasey?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Board member reports and requests, open comment session for individual board members to present final thoughts on any subject covered in the meeting. Updates on individual projects not covered by the team and requests for future board actions. Kasey, we'll start with you. Okay.
I have two things, Jim touched on one, the All West is now running through the new router service. We were doing some testing earlier, we're getting really good speed, so that can kind of progress forward with some of the other projects, but that's now been finalized, everything's moved forward. The second thing I have is actually based on the conversation Jim and I had today. I would like us to, word this the right way. I think Jim, to get this wrong, I apologize, Gordon and Matt need to sit down and have a meeting of minds to determine where Greenbelt is taken care of by Gordon's group and where it's taken care of by Mac's group, so that we're not gonna have, well, Mac's taking care of it, he decided he doesn't want it, and then Gordon's swamped, or vice versa, just because we do have some areas of grass that are really starting to die. I want a clean line so that whoever our general manager is has somebody that's accountable to it, not necessarily saying that Gordon or Matt are doing anything wrong one way or the other, but I don't want them to be able, essentially, I don't want Matt to say, well, it's Gordon's guys should be doing that sprinkler head. Even though I know we intermingle, but we don't necessarily intermingle. I'd like to have some defined definition there, because lack of a better word, we have some spots that are dying, and Gordon's swamped, and Mac's swamped, and so they just don't think about it, because, well, that's the other guy's area. So, that's something I had a conversation with Jim about, but I want to make it clear to the board, is I think we just need to have some definition of ownership for the managers, so they can hold their guys accountable to Gordon, can go to his guys and say, why is this pretty well not done? Not necessarily, well, then say, well, I thought that was golf course. I just want some definition for us.
So you think that's a board issue? Because I think that's a management.
Well, so I think it'd be a management issue, but clearly, stuff's dying, and I'm in here, for lack of a better word, telling Jim, let's find some ownership, because if you got guys saying one thing or the other, that needs to be solved. If that's as silly as it sounds, like a directive from the board, like, let's not let grass die, come up with something, then I guess I would be the ignorant one to say, what? Let's come up with something. I think everybody's super busy in swamp, but we have such areas where they just landed, right? everyone's so busy, little things are slipping, so I just want a point of it, so that we are aware as a board that I think it needs to be kind of defined, essentially, and I'm asking Jim, you with those two to define it, not us, but.
Yeah, we'll start with it, right?
Yeah.
Correct, and any other questions?
Yeah, we talked about that earlier.
That's it for me.
Ron, do you have anything?
I guess I'll piggyback on Kasey, we talked about, right, I think that's one thing that these hospitals would do as well. You can sit down and justify how much time I'm spending, right, that helps to justify routines and labor, and how it's being spent, and the necessary repairs. So, this area is dead, you can go back and look at your time, and you're gonna be able to help use those costs to quantify your labor, and what's exactly going on. So, I know we talked about it multiple times in our finance meeting, and other meetings with Jim, but I think that's one thing I've been asking for, better cost codes, because we track the revenue, we don't track the cost.
Wayne?
I think need to get more educated on the, water rights that we have and how much dirt we have on every gym. Yeah, I need to be more educated on that.
Kyle?
I just want to say thanks to all, everybody that put, a lot of things out. How is Stansbury going to contribute? So, thanks for everybody that put, and, we'll get there.
So I'll piggyback a little bit on to Kasey's comments. I think, I'm always chatting with Jim about dead spots and trying to keep not only the golf course, but all the other areas and not letting any more grass die in the park. So with that respect, Jim, do we need to have additional help to manage some of these areas that we're not able to keep up on?
Yeah, we might, I'm gonna sit down with the two managers with what we've got and where we're going. One of the problems we have right now is, as I mentioned earlier, we're starting to lose our summer help. So, we're gonna have to look at some other ways, and I think there's money in the budget ways. So let me sit with those guys and see what I can do.
So there's a couple things I've been thinking of. I know that Matt is having to do a lot of hand watering, and probably Gordon is probably having to do a lot of hand watering as well. But one possible solution might be, for on the golf course, is maybe get one of these guys that likes to play golf and just put them in charge. If we don't have enough money to hire somebody, at least they can get with Matt and say, okay, your job, we'll give you some free golf. Your job would be go around and turn these heads on once a day for 30 minutes. That might be a solution. Or
You just throw a switch, you have to install it on.
it's a key that you put in the heads and turn it on. You know, there's the head over there off of 4 T-box that I've been chatting with you about. So I went over and turned it on tonight for a little bit.
I wonder if you turn it on.
Yeah, but that head was hitting out into the road to the west 10 feet and then not covering fully to the east. So even though they've been turning it on manually, it hasn't been hitting the right spots. And so I think there's where it sounds like we need more help. And I've been willing to volunteer my time if they just let me know, and we've had that discussion personally, but maybe there's some things we can do, because I know there's lots of golfers for this kind of golf course that would like to see that be improved, more than it is. No, I think the number one hole on the golf course ought to be presentable without any dead grass. And first thing you walk into is on the sidewalk is dead grass, and right off the tee box is dead grass. Well, that's our number one hole. And I think with some coordination with the pro shop guys and Matt's crew, they could walk out
sprinkler on that, even on the barn. It just seems that we can be doing anything more productive, but I'm looking to the outside in, and I don't know all the ins and outs, but I guess my point is if we need to hire an outside contractor to come and help with a few things, then if we know about it, then we can take a look at that and get some help out. All right, anything else we have?
Did we hire an irrigation tech?
We have not, I mean, we put an offer out and we never heard back.
Can we train somebody?
We are currently training a guy that we think we could train eventually down.
What does it cost to train? Is it 2-week training? Is it 6 weeks?
No, it's a series.
Oh,
It's a series of actions to go through, so it takes about a year to get him up to where we really want him. He started this summer.
Is it online?
No, there's some training classes he's gonna have to go through. There's some online stuff he can do. So when I hired the two we hired last time, I put them through an online training course just to get the basics, and then we sent them to training with weather track on how to set up weather track, run the track, and we sent them to some other training to do some other things on that. So we've got a guy where we've got an eye on, we think we can improve to meet that level. Don't know if Toby wants to stay or not, but that's one of the guys. We actually have a pretty good team on Portland side who's been going around in his places, so I've seen them fall around, they just haven't made it all the way around. Spots that they're in stock.
Have you put it back out by chance?
It's still out.
It's still out.
Okay. We never close it, in fact, I'm gonna leave it open even if we hire it.
Which type of tree seasonal for irrigation?
I have a question that you might know the answer to. The men's league, do they have a president?
I can't hear you.
The men's league,
Okay.
the golfing men's league that plays out here like every Thursday,
Right.
do they have like a president that sets everything up, or is there?
That's a whole other
The only reason I ask is,
The answer is no.
okay, the only reason I ask is your point, right, is maybe we can approach the men's league and say, look, you know, we need some help, would some of you be willing to volunteer to take a
It's been a
dominant Greenbelt, you know? It's just thought they're out there every week playing, so they're gonna see the spots versus, I don't know how often you're golfing, but I'm not out there every week. You know what I mean? They'll see a little more, just thoughts I approach them, I like Brett's idea, having somebody kind of, they already have a golf cart more likely, so they can get to it pretty easy, I'm sure.
All right, thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Okay, I have a motion from Kyle and a second from Kasey to adjourn our meeting. Larry, how do you vote?
Yes.
Kyle? Aye. Brad is aye. Rob? Aye. And Kasey? Aye. Thank you. The meeting is adjourned at 9:09 p.m.